And with circumcision, when one doesn't do the healing or confront the feelings, all of that anger that was below the surface, they are slaves. We are slaves, and we are controlled by our conditioning and our programming when we're not aware of it. That's what's running us. Yeah. So if we want to be true anarchists, that starts from within.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. We're here in beautiful Loja, Ecuador. Actually, Vilcabamba is the exact area we're in. I'm here with Pyasa, who I met at Anarchapulco this year. She was speaking, I don't know on exactly what. I saw you doing all these things with people, making them jump up and down and all that kind of hippie stuff. And yeah, we're here in Ecuador. It's absolutely beautiful, amazing. Vilcabamba, there's a lot of expats, a lot of people we know, a lot of past Anarchast guests. Sasha Daygame kind of comes in and out of here. I think he has a restaurant here. Becca Tizgani lives here. You'll be seeing her tonight for dinner. Yes. And this is actually a topic that we're going to get into that I'm incredibly passionate about. And we're going to talk about circumcision. And I know a lot of people out there might not even know this is like a serious issue. They might have just thought, oh, it's just something we've been doing in our culture for a while, and they don't really think about it. But I think if you stick with us through this, you'll be pretty amazed at how important of an issue this is. And Pyasa is also a somatic sexologist. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and lots of stuff about sex and love and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people like that kind of stuff. So hopefully you'll watch this. And let's get right into it. Thanks for having us at your beautiful house.
Thank you.
And first question I have to ask you is, how did you become an anarchist?
The first answer that comes to me is I was born that way. And what also comes to me is that when I was in kindergarten, third grade, all the way through school, they always said, Nico, my birth name, is a really nice girl, but she doesn't know how to follow the rules.
That's good. I always like those
so
kids.
So I've always been like that.
Yeah, well, those schools are meant to turn people into obedient slaves. So I sometimes a mother will come up to me and she'll say, I really like your stuff, been following you for a while. My son's in high school and he's having a lot of problems. The teachers and the principals get really angry at him. And I go, that's awesome. Like he's showing a really good sign of actually being a real human being, still being alive, because that's what those school systems are designed to do, is destroy the kids.
And those kids are probably not circumcised.
Yeah, we're going to get into this. The circumcision thing is way deeper than most people have ever heard about. And for the guys out there, if you're watching, you might be shocked at the end of this of what's occurred to you if you had been circumcised when you were a baby. Most people, including myself, when I first looked into this a few years ago, I was pretty shocked. And the more I looked into it, I was like, man, we need to end circumcision. For babies. If you want to do it as an adult, go for it. I couldn't care less what you do with your penis when you're an adult, but as a baby, it's pretty crazy. Let's talk, before we get into it though, about the somatic sexologist. What is that exactly?
Okay, so I'm a somatic sexologist, which means I'm not really a talk therapist. I help people find a deeper sense of safety and comfort in their bodies. And the way that I'm approaching it is really looking so much at the sexual conditioning that we've received and how to become aware of it, how to release that conditioning. Once we become aware of it, we have the ability to let it go, right? So there's so much guilt and shame around sexuality. So I look at that a lot.
The culture.
From the cult. And also, surprisingly enough for a lot of people, I think, is teaching people how to bring the sexual energy more throughout their entire body instead of staying completely genitally focused.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been something I've been learning a lot about, and I've become very serious about learning a lot of this stuff because in many ways, I was sort of your typical guy in the cult, in the culture today, where no one told me what sex is, no one taught me anything about it, and certainly I never heard a lot of the views that you just talked about. In fact, most people, well, my parents never even talked to me about it. My little brother was a little brother, so he didn't know anything about it. Had no real friends that knew anything about it, so I was just trying to figure it out on my own, and ended up, like a lot of guys, over years, looking at a lot of porn, masturbating a lot. And I have to say, if you watch a lot of porn, you got to stop it. It destroys you in so many ways. And a lot of people don't realize how important and how incredible sexuality is. And as you pointed out, in our cult, it's mostly just focused on the genitals. And a lot of people think, oh, sex, that's just, porn stuff. You just bang, bang, bang.
Exactly.
And but it's actually, when you get into it and you start to learn how to use your whole body, it's so much better.
Right.
But hardly anyone knows that.
Right. So part of the sexual conditioning that we received, you mentioned, one is that people didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Just like that, that's conditioning.
Yeah.
Right? That's like, it's secrecy and shame, and we shouldn't talk about it. And so, yeah, and then circumcision is a big part of that conditioning.
Yeah, totally.
It really is a big part.
Yeah, and just to finish off on the sexuality part, there's a thing called no fap movement, basically no masturbation movement. And it's pretty, like, I've been into this for a while now. So I stopped with the porn about a year or two ago. I stopped with the masturbation. Because when you think about it, you're a guy and you're sitting there watching another guy have sex and masturbating. This is not natural. This is not normal. It's not healthy, I don't think.
Well, there can be people who like to observe sex, and that's a turn on.
But if that's the only thing you're doing, is sitting there in front of a screen.
And the thing about the only thing that we're doing is that we're creating neural pathways, right? And we're myelinating, like making grooves in the neural pathways. So with pornography, one of the things, or just genital-based sex, where we're just going for the orgasm completely, like, or I'd rather say climax, just with the genitals, is... it becomes just this one pathway that we know, right? So the pornography is making these grooves in the system so that it actually becomes more difficult for us to access pleasure in other ways. Totally. Right? So it's something that we have to retrain and learn new patterns, which equals practice and effort. And then we can change those neural pathways.
Yeah, totally. And I should point out, I started working with you about a month or two ago. Very new to all these ideas, but already within a few months, it's really transformed my life quite a bit. My wife's sitting over there. She's very happy with the changes, because I've gone from being very cold and not really connected to a lot more. And it's like I said, it's a lot more than I ever knew that you could do. And there's other things as well, as not ejaculating when you orgasm, and that saves your energy. And a big part of the no-fap movement that a lot of guys, so if you haven't done this before, look into no-fap and try not masturbating for a couple weeks. All of a sudden you become, you've got this like energy about you that other people can actually see. And that's because you've been reserving that energy that you're normally just expending constantly. Right,
because it's your chi, your life force energy.
Yeah.
It's our creativity.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So it can go into other directions.
Yeah.
Also. And really, what was I doing at Anarchast? Well, I was doing a lot of emotional release. If you look at some of my videos, you'll see people with blindfolds on screaming and shouting to express the repressed emotions, because that's what damps us down from being able to be more orgasmic. Because when we can stimulate here, of course we want to include the genitals, but we can bring it into the whole body and become orgasmic rather than just having orgasms, which I know you get. We've been talking about it.
But,
yeah, we've been talking about it.
A year or two ago, this would have just, I'd be like, what? I've never heard about this. And most people haven't. So I'm glad we talked about it. But the real thing that I really want to get into is the circumcision thing. And I don't think I even mentioned yet, you're producing a documentary on it. You're actually working with Chris Harrigan, who's behind the camera there right now. That's why our video quality's amazing, because he's got this $10,000, $15,000 camera.
Yeah.
He's flown down here to work with you on this documentary about it. And you're actually fundraising for it. You've been paying out of your own pocket for it till now, but you're running out of a bit of funds to finish it up. Yeah. And I don't think you need a lot. We'll give people the Indiegogo link at the end. If you find that this is something that you'd like to see get done, definitely $10, $20. There's going to be thousands of people watching this. You can make this happen a lot better and higher quality as well. Maybe it'll end up on some film festivals. Maybe it'll end up on Netflix. Although probably not, because they try to censor everything that has any truth to it.
There is American Circumcision.
Oh, yeah?
Did you see this one?
No.
Yes, it's made by Brendan, I'm probably going to screw up his name, Murata. Okay. And we've been in contact, actually. He contacted me when he heard I was making this film. and offered his support in various ways.
Oh, awesome.
So not financially, but so he made American Circumcision, which is on Netflix.
Okay.
And the approach that I'm bringing is very different than what he's doing.
Yeah, so let's get into
what he
that.
did.
Let's start off with, why should someone watching right now care about the topic of circumcision? Why is this an important topic?
Okay. Let's see where we're going to start. So I've been approaching the whole subject from a very body, mind, and spirit level, right? So just functionally, like the basic function of the foreskin, which many men, when they realize that they don't have this foreskin, they feel very angry and deprived of this. I have notes, because this is really serious. So there are 20 in the adult male foreskin. It grows to 20 square inches of skin tissue. There are 240 nerves, 240 feet of nerves, and 20,000 sex nerve endings, right? So that's a lot of sensation that has been lost. And so speaking of sensation, why is this important? There's so many things. I'm going to try to get it in here, but when a baby... Let me just say
before you start, because when I found out about it, I'm not the kind of person who gets really angry ever. Like when a lot of people say, when you found out about, how really bad the central banks and the governments are, where, a lot of people get really angry and they go into a state of depression, that sort of stuff. I was actually excited. I was like, oh, this is the answer that I've been looking for. But as I looked into circumcision a few years ago, that was probably the angriest I've ever been about any single issue, when I realized what had been taken from me without my permission. And this goes way deeper, so stay tuned. We're going to get into this. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize what's been taken away from them, just on the sensation level, and then we're going to get into all the other things.
Yeah. So on a sensation level, it was believed for a long time that babies don't feel the circumcision,
right? Yeah.
Right? So very rarely did they use anesthesia. Sometimes they would, but usually not enough anyway. So what we're discovering is, as the science in trauma gets more educated, is that the baby feels everything, anywhere. If you're touching the arm, the baby feels everything as their whole body. So when they're getting circumcised, which they're tied down to a board so that they can't move.
Like a couple days after they're born, right? 24
to 72 hours after they're born.
Like, just imagine this. You've been born, you're in this world, like what a shock that even is, right? Just like, whoa, where am I? And I know a lot of people think as a baby you're not feeling this. Of course you are. And then to be taken away from your mother,
right,
by some guy with like a butcher outfit on, strapped down, and he cuts off half the skin off your penis.
Right.
And the baby basically goes into shock, right?
So the baby feels not just shock, but we have in trauma, we have fight, flight, or freeze, right? So basically the baby is so overwhelmed, and the definition of trauma is too much, too fast, I wasn't prepared. So maybe if this baby or this child, say, was 13 and they're in an African initiation ritual and they know they're going to get their foreskin taken, but the baby has no idea, right? So everything is too much, too fast. They were not prepared. They're feeling this entire experience as their whole body. And what is happening is that some of these babies look like they're sleeping because they're so much in a state of freeze. Their whole nervous system is shutting down and getting frozen, right? So one of the things that I'm really keying into that I want to share, and I'm sharing through the documentary, is the fact that when that freeze state happens, unless you consciously release that and other parts, which the freeze state affects the jaw and the pelvis, right? Or when we're in, not just the freeze state, but when we have a trauma, our jaw and our pelvis, which are connected, freeze and lock, right? So the pelvic floor. So the nervous system, the pelvic floor, the jaw, everything's locked. So what I think is really important for everybody to know is that unless you consciously release this, it's still that way. So we're still in a defensive mode, and shut down, not available, not present to the here and now. So this is a big piece that I think is really important. Besides the fact that there was so much more pleasure that people could feel, and there's actually
connection.
Connection.
Because, when you're the act of sex between a man and a woman, I know you can have it between man and man or whatever, but that's a real special connection that you're missing a part of that. And it's almost like a spiritual level thing. And I used to be very, I had a lot of casual sex in my life, probably more than almost anyone you know. I think Wilt Chamberlain I think I beat him. Like, I went crazy.
High five.
No, actually, I feel bad about it now because I totally was sleepwalking through it all. Right. I was mostly drunk the whole time. I was not having that real connection that I now know you can have. Yeah. That's a whole other angle to it is
so the spiritual. So this in Chinese medicine is the conception vessel meridian, right? Like maybe you've seen charts of the meridians in the body. This is the conception vessel meridian. This is where we root. This is our pole of connecting into the earth and connecting upward into the sky. So if you imagine an injury, like circumcision, that happens, what is that doing to this electromagnetic flow, right? Yep. So, and I really want to say at this point that there are solutions to healing from this trauma, and that's actually the name of the documentary, is called Healing the Hidden Wound. Yeah, because it's a hidden wound. That freeze state, you don't remember, but it's affecting.
Right.
And some people get into meditation or they get into different kinds of spiritual practices where...
Or therapy even.
Yeah, where maybe this gets cleared.
Right.
And maybe there was never even the connection like, oh, that was in the first 24 hours that I was born, right? So maybe they're clearing it on some levels, unintentionally. And a lot of people aren't. So the whole intention of this documentary is to bring awareness as to the different levels that it's affected us on, because without the awareness, usually it's not possible to heal things. Yeah, we have to know what's going on so that we can go, oh, okay, then we have the power. Then we're empowered to change, right?
Yeah. When I first met you and you mentioned you're doing this documentary, I had already been having these thoughts. I was like, someone needs to do some research and see what the difference in your average person who's been circumcised is and your average person who hasn't. And I've just, on the ground, as a person who's traveled all over the world, I've been in places where it's not normal to circumcise, and I've noticed that people are a lot different. And in places like the U.S. and a lot of the Western places.
The most war-driven country has the highest statistics
aggression,
of circumcision.
Violence.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I think, is because these guys are not being completely fulfilled in their sort of sexual life. They're not having that connection. In fact, you talk to a lot of girls, they're like, man, this guy, like, he had sex with me like 3 hours. He couldn't, because he wasn't feeling it enough. And then they're using the porn, and then they're getting angry, and they don't even know why. So they just think it's normal, and I thought it was normal too, until I found out about it. And you brought up the, healing from it, and I want to talk a bit more about that as well. But for me personally, when I first found out about it, the first thing I did was a Google search: how can I regrow my foreskin? Right. Now you can never. Well, you can. I'll get into that. But up until the technology of today, you haven't been able to fully regrow your foreskin, but I think that is possible now with stem cells. We'll get into that. But you can just stretch the skin. So I forget what the name of it was. Tugger,
Yeah, it's for...
TLC Tugger.
It's for restoration.
Right.
And there's a difference between restoration, regeneration.
Right.
I just wanted to at least get get the head covered because it gets dry. That's a whole other thing, right? Yeah. Like, it's there for a reason. Like, I don't know if you believe in God or whatever created you, but even if you just think it's all kind of just a nature thing, nature doesn't create very many imperfect things. Really? But all of a sudden in our cult, they're like, well, you better cut that off of that little baby, because what if he grows up and he doesn't wash it very well? It's like, well, cut off his ears too then. Right?
Well, actually, okay, so there's a lot of reasons, alleged reasons why they say circumcision is needed. Okay. And it's cleanliness, which relates to STDs and AIDS and different things like that. And
it's getting a little
and
dark
basically it's been proven in studies that have been done between the United States and Europe, where people are mostly not circumcised, that it's bullshit. The reasons that they say. But besides the medical reasons, Kellogg, do you remember Kellogg?
The cornflakes?
What is it? Yeah. Kellogg cornflakes. He was a psycho motherfucker. Okay, so he decided that masturbation was making mostly crazy people masturbate. Something like this, okay? And that's why I write notes sometimes, because I don't remember. But you can look it up. There's a story about. So he pushed the circumcision agenda, so that people would not be masturbating and go crazy, right? So, and that foreskin that then they cut off, which is so much shame on masturbation too, which is bullshit. Like self-pleasuring is beautiful, yeah. But so. That foreskin that was covering the shaft, the gland. Now the gland is exposed to all kinds of rubbing on the clothes throughout the life. This is part of why I believe that at a certain point in a man's life there's erectile dysfunction, or can be, because there's less and less sensation. As you were talking about, this hard banging is because there's less sensation, and there's collagen layers have been laid down so that the shaft of the penis now is thicker and thicker and thicker with less and less sensation.
Yeah.
Well, say I did the TLC tugger off and on for a couple years. I probably regrew about half, or restored about half, and it's a huge difference in the because it's, you know, a lot of guys, you know, not to be too graphic here, but like, you know, if there's not a lot of skin there to move, it's just kind of like this, right? And that's a very friction sort of thing. And a lot of girls will mention this, that, you know, it's kind of, it's too much. But when you have more skin, it's more of a rolling thing, which feels so much better, I've noticed. And I should mention, whenever I post about circumcision, always one guy comes on, he goes, oh, I just got circumcised. It's great. It's like, good, go ahead. But I've had both, and I think it's better the other way. But that's way beyond the point. The point is, you don't take a baby and cut off half the skin off his penis a day after he's frickin' born. That's fucking, oh man, I do get a little angry about it.
Well, but, and that's one of the layers of healing as well, is, so when you were tied down to a board and circumcised, and so overwhelmed, there's gonna be anger. There's gonna be, you know, this helplessness, this vulnerability that comes throughout the whole life. And then there's so much conditioning around anger. So we're all supposed to be nice, and, you know, it's like not politically correct to be angry. But I'm here to say that that's a big level of the healing around the circumcision. So there's a physical scar which you can actually work with. So even if you do foragen,
I'll just mention that before you start with this. I've been huge into the stem cells, and they're amazing. I see they're regrowing teeth now with stem cells. I've been on stem cells for a couple of years, and I've never felt better in 20 years. Any problem I had has gone away. It's absolutely unbelievable, and there's a few companies, a few people working on regrowing the foreskin, which I think is now possible from what I see. And I think I told the Foragen guys, which is a company working on it, I'm like, you know, I want to be near the top of the list, you know, just, I don't care if it's a trial, you know.
They have like 100,000 volunteers.
Yeah. Like
something like that.
It's amazing how, like, you might not have heard about this, but it's a pretty big issue with a lot of people. It's just kind of like, it doesn't get talked about too much publicly. But for people out there, so if you're watching this and you're like kind of angry now, and I apologize for making you angry, but it's better you hear the truth. You do have some options. You can at least start to regrow it with the stem cells. You might be able to regrow it, but that's just the beginning, as you pointed out. You're talking about that trauma is actually held in the cells.
It's a cellular memory.
And we have to fix that somehow.
Yeah, so what you're doing with the tugger is called restoration. Right. What Foragen is doing, and other companies that are working on stem cell, is regeneration. So they're actually regrowing with all the specialized nerves. So with the restoration, it's bringing the foreskin back so that there is that rolling effect when there's sex happening, intercourse happening. And then something that I do with my clients and that I'm teaching in the program that I'm creating after we create the documentary is scar tissue remediation. And because working with the cells, or working with the scar, we'll be, first of all, releasing cellular memory from this experience. One can expect that, for memories and feelings to surface. by starting to work with the scar. And scars are very easy to work with, actually. I do a lot of scar tissue remediation with women and with men. And a lot of it is really simply like rolling the skin and really making conscious contact with the scar and allowing the fascia, the tissue below to just really melt, right? So that's one of the layers of the scars. The other layers of the scars are myelinated in our neural pathways. They're clamping our pelvic floor, which also stops the flow of energy. But backing up here to the scar tissue remediation. So as we were talking about this conception vessel meridian, this is an electromagnetic pole, right? That connects us. And so when we're making love, we're connecting our poles, right? It's an electromagnetic experience as well as physical and emotional and all of that. So by working with the scar tissue, we're bringing back feeling because we're healing that break in the electromagnetic field. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Is there anything else, like, because you haven't told me how to do this yet. Is that something you can explain in a minute or two, how to do it? Or is it a little bit more complicated?
Well, I am making a program for men to be able to do this with themselves.
Great.
So the Healing the Hidden Wound documentary is kind of like also an introduction to then now if you decide that you would like to heal from this trauma, this pre-verbal trauma, so I'm teaching it there, but like I said, it's very, very simple. Like you could just be consciously touching your scar. Consciously touching, making contact with the scar, really tuning into like what direction does the tissue want to go with a very gentle touch, rolling, like pinching and rolling scars, any scar on the body, but including on the lingam, on the penis. Yeah, because even with restoration or even with regeneration, I think this is really important because the cells hold so much memory.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a way of honoring ourselves, of loving ourselves, or a man who wants to heal, loving and honoring his body and facing that wound, because that's what it takes is some courage and desire to face that wound.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, one of the things that I've noticed that kind of really irritate me is the topic of circumcision will come up somewhere, or you might just be talking to a person about it. I'll give you one example. I had an ex-girlfriend, and I thought it was just a few years ago, but that girlfriend was like 15 years ago. So it's been a while since I found out about this stuff. And I remember telling her that I was not happy about being circumcised, and she told me, "Well, I just think it looks better." And to me, that was like, I was butchered as a baby, and you don't even answer like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." You didn't even think about that. You just went, "Well, I just think it looks better." It's like, yeah, totally. So if you're one of those people out there, man, like that's like, so, you know, like, but because if you talk to someone who's like, almost anyone actually, and you talk about how in Africa they still do some female genital mutilation, almost anyone will go, "That's terrible. We should bomb those countries. Those people are barbarians." And then you go, "I got circumcised." They're like, "Oh, good. It looks better." I don't think it looks better, but you know, like, holy cow, you guys are like, how do you not see that they're both very similar? There's genital mutilation of a baby.
That's why we need to educate.
Totally. And so that's why I'm so glad. I'm so glad you're doing the documentary.
Yeah. Thank you.
And one thing we should talk about is, you know, what's really going on here. Like this show, we talk about any kind of conspiracy theories that you can come up with. And anyone who knows me is I'm looking for the truth. And I think this goes way deeper. I think this comes from almost, you know, I don't know how to explain it, satanic stuff. You know, most of the people who are controlling the world today, they believe they're Satanists. They believe in Satan. I don't know if Satan's real or what Satan is necessarily, but they truly believe it. And a big part of their cult, and you were telling me that I think Chris was telling me that people in Hollywood, a lot of those, they're all into this stuff. So, what, are you scared of me mentioning this?
No, I will. No.
Yeah. So apparently, like, I don't know if this is true, that they pay a lot of money. A lot of these.
It's true.
Well, tell them.
I will tell you. I will tell you. Baby foreskins are the property of the hospital. The hospital sells it to companies where they do stem cell research, so that's great. But
Well,
I mean,
I wish
maybe,
it didn't
yeah,
happen that way.
okay. Stem cell, just saying that stem cell
That's not
research
terrible.
is wonderful.
Yeah.
But that baby's foreskin was given to the hospital, and the hospital makes, okay, and this is where facts always come in. Look up your own research. $100,000 per foreskin by selling it to the cosmetic industry. So right now, you can look it up. It's on YouTube. There is an interview with some Hollywood people, I forgot their names, where they're talking very jokingly, ha ha ha, about the Korean baby foreskins that they are doing facials with. So it's called a penis facial, and it's $600, and it's a big popular thing in Hollywood, where if you want to talk about Luciferian or satanic energy, it could be focused around there. So they're doing, and they think it's really funny. And by the way, also lip injections, collagen injections are also infant male foreskins.
Wow, I didn't even
So
know that.
you might want to tell your girlfriend,
And if
if, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're the kind of person who's like wants to control the world, what's one of the things you would want to do? You'd want to destroy the masculinity of the men in the world, and you start right there.
And as we know, or we suspect, these entities, we'll call them, are very aware of occult information, occult, right? So this is your meridian, right? So they would know that would shut down the sex energy in a certain way, right?
Cause a lot of
Create
people-
more pain, and as David Icke calls loosh, right? Creating, as we create more traumatic experiences, trauma-based mind control on the planet, the loosh is being fed to these beings, supposedly. I can't say that, and I know any of that is true, but it's a crazy agenda. There's, Hillary Clinton was really pushing the circumcision agenda.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Not a surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, these people.
But yeah, it makes total sense to me that is an agenda of them, is to do those sort of things. Just really one day after a baby's born, just trauma, and they'll have that trauma. You won't even know you have it. That's the thing about a lot of trauma is you don't really even know you have it. It's in your subconscious,
Right.
and
And
you're,
in the pelvis.
and so you're acting in certain ways, and you don't know why you're acting that way. And so that's why things like therapy are important, or meditation, and just trying to figure out what's in there. Because, I think most people watching this probably didn't know anything about this circumcision until now, right? It's not out there, and your average person doesn't know. So that's why it's so great you're doing the documentary. And please make sure that you support, if you're into this stuff, you're not asking for tons of money. You just want to get enough done that you can make a really good documentary. We'll have the link to that down below.
Thank you.
And people just need to wake up to a lot of this stuff. And it seems like everyone's sort of waking up to a lot of this stuff now, Like if you think about it, like 20 years ago, anarchism no one was an anarchist. A lot of people thought, oh, the government's here to protect us. Like what? No one knew what central banks were. They didn't know what the Federal Reserve even was. That's all changed in the last 20 years. It's almost like it's a conscious awakening occurring. And now a lot of people, and you'd be surprised, there's big movements out there of guys who are very angry about circumcision. You just don't hear about it much. Yeah, the
Intactivists. Yeah, and one thing that I want to say with that is that the percentage of circumcision is going down right now.
That's good.
It is going down. In other countries, like here in Ecuador, it's actually going up because they want to be like the U.S.
Oh, God.
And so they're a little behind the story. But the statistics are going down, and so I think it's wonderful when people decide not to circumcise their children, and it's also really important that father heals his own circumcision trauma, because children attune to the vibration. And this is, it's like in epigenetics is kind of describing this now too, in inherited family trauma, right?
Yep.
So if we do the work to clear our own traumas, we don't pass it on to the kids. So it's not just about don't circumcise your child, it's also about do the work to heal.
Yeah, and that's what I talk a lot about for the last couple of years. I've been doing all of this kind of work on myself, and it's been amazing. It's like, I'm such a different person than I was a few years ago, and so much happier, and so much, not every day I'm super happy or anything, but like, my life is so much better after years of doing this work. And this work isn't easy. Like, you're not going to do it in one day, and it is hard, but it's been well worth it in my opinion. So we have a lot of people like you speaking at Acapulco. I think I don't make all the decisions in Acapulco anymore. We've got a team, as you know, you've talked to some of them, and Becca's even on the team to some extent, but I'm really going to try to push for you to be on the main stage next year talking about this sort of stuff.
This was my plan. Yes.
All right.
All right.
I think people just need
to know more about this, and we really got to just spread the awareness. So if you're watching this right now and you found this interesting, please at least like it, and that way more people will see it, even though YouTube really tries to make sure that you don't see this. And if you can, share it. I know it's a little bit of an embarrassing topic to some people, but
yeah.
We're
healing shame.
Yeah.
We all have genitals. It's a hidden trauma.
Yeah.
Let's bring it into the light of awareness so that we can heal it for the generations to come, especially also.
Yeah. Don't be scared to speak
Don't be
the
ashamed.
truth out there. No, don't at all.
If you were circumcised, you were the victim of a horrible, criminal, brutal act, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, it was not your fault. You were 1 day old when I can't believe there's still circumcision doctors. Like, I am not for going out and killing people. But if you're going to do that, I won't even say it because I don't want anyone to do it, because that's not the way we're going to heal it. We're not killing circumcision doctors is not the right way. What we have to do is wake people up to the this is how bad it is, so that everyone just stops doing it. Yes. We're not going to heal things through violence. And this is something I learned years ago about anarchism. We're not going to get rid of the government by blowing up the government. They're just going to rebuild it again. That's not what we're about. We have to wake people up that they own themselves and they should not be enslaved, and spread it positively, not negatively.
And with circumcision, when one doesn't do the healing or confront the feelings, all of that anger that was below the surface, they are slaves. We are slaves, and we are controlled by our conditioning and our programming when we're not aware of it. That's what's running us. Yeah. So if we want to be true anarchists, that starts from within.
Yeah, totally.
In my mind, it's not just about crypto, which is, awesome. And if you're making extra crypto money, send it this way. Chris and I will make this and get this out into the world in a big way. We believe we know. We're almost there. So, yeah, being a true anarchist is being self-governed. And if I'm self-governed, I'm not being run by my conditioning.
Absolutely.
That's been a huge awakening to a lot of us. 5-10 years ago, we were like, the government sucks, we just have to end it. And now if you go to Acapulco, almost every speaker says, start by healing yourself, and from there, we can help heal the world. And this
exactly,
really
the Anarch Awaken, no?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Health and wellness.
Health and wellness.
We're going to be doing that again next year. A lot of great people like yourself. So
it is so much fun. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Come to Acapulco.
Yeah, I know a lot of people.
It was amazing.
All that kind of stuff, the stuff you were doing.
Yeah.
All these ways of, releasing pain, releasing trauma. No one teaches any of that stuff, right? like all this stuff that you talk about does not get taught to anyone, right? And they just sit there, and throughout their whole lives, they just continue having problems, and they don't know why. But there is solutions to everything. We talked about the solutions. Even if you've been circumcised, we're pretty close to the point where you can start to get it back through stem cells and things like that. But as you were pointing out, it's way more than that. You got to heal the trauma.
Body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the hidden scars.
Yeah, and there's lots. Like, what a crazy world we live in where there's this much damage. I don't know who's been in charge here for the last while, but I'm doing my best to get rid of them because this is enough is enough. No more torture, no more trauma, no more all the things they do to these kids, and the vaccines now. Of course, I've had on Dr. Sherry Tenpenny and numerous people, and even Del Bigtree, who did the movie Vaxxed, which did get kicked off of Netflix, was at Acapulco. Oh. Yeah, it was. And
he's amazing, Del.
Yeah. I didn't even know he was at Acapulco. That's how cool Acapulco was. Like, that's a great documentary. He's very well known, and I didn't even know he was there. And he was speaking on one of the stages. I found out after. I'm trying to hook up with him for an interview on Anarchast, but yeah. So come check out Acapulco. It's gonna be February. I don't know the exact date.
I'll see you on the main stage.
It's going to be mid-February next year. I'm just about to announce the dates, and a lot of great people. And yeah, check it out. Is there anything that we didn't mention that you wanted to mention? Any final words?
Let me
check your
think.
notes.
Let's see. Yeah.
I think we got most of it.
I think I got most of it. I just want to thank you, Jeff, so much for coming all the way here, for giving me this opportunity to have a voice in the world, because I feel like I live here in the nature most of the year, except when I'm traveling and teaching, and I feel very connected with Pachamama, Mother Earth, and I really feel that this is coming from her. She wants us to heal. She wants us to be free of trauma, and she wants a better world. So thank you for allowing this voice to be heard, whoever's it is, and thanks for all that you do.
Yeah, my pleasure. And you know, when I heard you're down here and Becca Desgani is here and Sasha Daygame's here, I was like, I better check this place out. Something's going on.
Something's going on.
And then I looked at the pictures, and man, this place is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It's so nice here. So it's been a pleasure. And on top of that, when I heard you're working on this documentary, I'm like, thank you. We need this so bad. So if this resonates with you, check out the Indiegogo down below. You've got $10, $20, got $100, $500. Awesome.
10,000.
Yeah, you've got a lot of money.
We have places to spend it on this documentary.
Yeah, so she'll have all the info on the Indiegogo, so
what you can donate and what that might get you, or what they can do with that money and things like that. And I didn't give the full props to Chris Harrigan, who's still here filming. He was a past Anarchast guest. We went with him to Cherán, Mexico, to see those brave anarchists there. And that relationship with those people in Cherán has gone a long ways. The town elders came to Anarchapulco last year. There's a lot of us anarcho-capitalists, anarchists, voluntarists, whatever words you want to use for us, working with them to try to do things in their area, try to build up the capital in that area, and they're very interested in that. So so Chris is working on it, and if you go back and watch the documentary with Chris, he's done a lot of great work. He's worked with so many, like he's actually used to work for the mainstream a lot, but he found that he made a lot of money, but it wasn't making him happy. So now he's been working on a lot of things that
resonate with his heart.
Yeah, absolutely. So
for awakening.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll leave it there. Like I said, like, subscribe, share down below. It really helps us get this message out. We really need to let people know about how bad circumcision is. I see, you know, it must be once every month or two, someone will post something like, my friend's getting his kid circumcised next week. What do you think? And it's like, no, I wish I had more stuff to send them, like your documentary and stuff. So, you know, like, because once it's done, that kid's going to have to go through decades of trauma and go through all the hard work to restore it afterwards, when it can just be ended by just not doing it in the first place. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace.
Peace.
Love and anarchy.
Anarchapulco, it's so hype, I'm trying to tell ya. This the event of the year and best vacation ever. Ron Potter, Jeffrey Tucker, just to name a few. Get your tickets, you don't want to miss it. You should roll through. Talking politics to health and self-improvement to invest in. So many things, not one thing. Learn how to live life unchained, yeah. 4 days vibing on the beach, time to connect. All about growth, way more than a conference. This is Anarchapulco, yeah. Let's go.
You ain't seen nothing yet.